I'm here today to talk to you about two things, hope and fear. If I asked you to tell me what you saw when you looked at this pencil, what would you say? Most of you would just say it's a normal number 2 pencil, but what if I were to tell you it's the hopes and dreams of 250 million underprivileged children? Now what if I asked you to call 25 family members and ask for donations for these 250 million children? Most of you would feel anxious or a bit afraid to do it, but some of you would be okay with it. And most people would also feel afraid, so you're not alone. I'm going to tell you the story of Adam Braun, who also was afraid to ask people for money. His main problem was his need for money, and he was afraid to ask for it. He came from Wall Street, he had a good job there, and he left to travel the world, and he started this organization called Pencils of Promise. And basically what this organization did is they went all around the world to poorer areas, and they would build schools for these underprivileged children. And they would give them an opportunity to learn. He was comfortable with asking for labor or like help building the schools, but he wasn't comfortable in asking for actual money to contribute to buying the supplies. His dream of Pencils of Promise started with $25 and asking one underprivileged child what he wanted most in the world, and what he wanted most in the world was a pencil. Adam was shocked at the answer that he got, because he never could imagine that the answer that this child would give him would be something as simple as a pencil, and how much underprivileged children value education. To this day, Pencils of Promise has built over 200 schools, and statistics show that even with these 200 schools that they built, still 250 million children are underprivileged and don't have education and don't know how to read and write. But the problem isn't that they don't know how to read and write. The problem is getting the funding to teach them how to read and write. Because if you don't have the funding to build the actual schools, then you can't teach the children how to read and write and do math. But this problem doesn't just affect the children, it affects the people in the village, also the parents, because they want the best life for their children, but it also affects the people who are a part of Pencils of Promise. Because since Adam he was so afraid to ask for money, he wasn't putting forth his full effort, and therefore the company wasn't succeeding in building as many schools as they could have if he was asking for money. His way of getting money for the company was he would sell tickets to certain events and get money that way. He would never directly go from person to person asking, like, hey, can you give me a check for this amount of money? He would just sell. He was really humble. He realized one day that he needed to change his ways, because the CFO of Pencils of Promise had a child, and he looked into the child's eyes, and he saw that not only was he affected by it, but the people who are underprivileged and don't have the education are being affected by this. So he needed to stop worrying about his fears and focus on why he started this company, or not company, organization, so he could give these people the best education possible and get a better life. So in doing that, he talked to the board one day of Pencils for Promise, and he said basically, hey, I'm having this problem that I don't know how to ask people to give me money. So he brought that up, and the people at the meeting were shocked that him, being the founder of Pencils of Promise, never asked anybody for money, and they were just shocked at that, because the main way that a nonprofit organization gets money is from donations. So they were able to work through it together, and he was able to start asking people for money and donations. But the way that I look at it is, when I'm afraid to do something, I tend to look at it as like, what's the worst thing that can happen if something were to go wrong. Like I was afraid in the beginning of this online speech class to ask people to come watch my speeches, but I thought to myself, what's the worst that could happen? They could say no, and I would just find somebody else. But I was able to overcome that fear and progress forward and get where I needed to go. And same goes with Adam. He was able to progress, and Pencils of Promise really went forward from there. The solution to this is you need to realize who's affected most by it. And for me, it was, I was affected most, but for Adam it was the company and all of the children. So don't let fear get in the way. And Adam's fear almost cost him his whole company. But you too can overcome fear and achieve hope and happiness.